My name is Jade, and for the past 3 years, I've been married to the man of my dreams, Ethan. We met at a small bookstore 5 years ago, and from the moment he handed me the book I've been searching for, I knew he was special. Ethan isn't just kind, he's thoughtful in ways that take your breath away. He remembers the little things like how I take my coffee or how I hum when I'm nervous. Our life together is what most people would call simple, but to me, it's perfect. Our home is small, nestled on a tree-lined street where the mornings smell of freshly cut grass and the evenings are filled with the hum of crickets. Inside, it's filled with laughter, memories, and dreams of the future. We talk about everything, or at least I thought we did. But lately, something's been different. Ethan has been distant, his attention often elsewhere. He's always been attentive, the kind of man who asks about my day and listens intently to every word. But now I catch him staring at his phone, his expression unreadable. He'd pull away slightly when I reached for his hand, and his laughter seemed forced, like he was trying to hide something. It started with little things, a missed dinner conversation, a late-night phone call he brushed off as work-related. At first, I convinced myself I was overthinking, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. One night, as we sat together on the couch, I finally asked, "Is everything okay?" Ethan hesitated, his fingers tightening around his phone before he forced a smile. Of course, just busy with work. I wanted to believe him. I told myself that maybe I was imagining things, that every relationship goes through phases. But the nagging feeling in my chest only grew stronger. The truth revealed itself on a rainy Saturday morning. Ethan had left for an early meeting, leaving his phone charging on the kitchen counter. I wasn't the kind of wife who snooped. I respected his privacy, and he respected mine. But when his phone buzzed with a notification, I glanced at it almost instinctively. It was a message from Rachel. The name hit me like a slap. Rachel was Ethan's ex-girlfriend, the woman he had dated for years before meeting me. I didn't know much about her. Ethan rarely talked about her, but I knew she was a part of his past. The message read, "I can't stop thinking about us. Please, Ethan, we need to talk." My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. A flood of emotions surged through me: anger, confusion, fear. Was Ethan talking to her? Why hadn't he mentioned her reaching out? My heart pounded as another message appeared. "I miss you. I made a mistake letting you go." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. All the little moments of distance, the late night calls, the distracted looks, they all made sense now. When Ethan came home later that day, I couldn't hide my turmoil. "Ethan," I said, my voice trembling, "Rachel messaged you. I saw it." His face paled, and for a moment, I saw a panic flash in his eyes. "Jade, it's not what you think," he said quickly. "She's just going through some stuff. I didn't want to worry you." "Going through what?" I demanded. "And why is she saying she misses you? Ethan, what's going on?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She reached out a few weeks ago. She said she needed someone to talk to." I didn't think it was worth bringing up because it's nothing. "I love you, Jade. I'm not going back to her." His words sounded sincere, but they didn't erase the ache in my chest. Why hadn't he told me sooner? Why had he been hiding this from me? Over the next week, the tension between us grew. Ethan promised me he wasn't seeing Rachel, but his phone was always close by, and I caught him glancing at it more often than usual. It felt like a wall had sprung up between us, and I didn't know how to break it down. One evening, while Ethan was out, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I reached out to one of Ethan's old friends who had known him during his relationship with Rachel. I needed answers, anything that could help me understand why she had come back into our lives. "Rachel?" The friend said when I brought up her name. "Yeah, I heard she moved back to town." She and Ethan were pretty serious back in the day. She always thought they'd end up together, The words sent a chill through me. I thanked the friend and hung up, but my mind was racing. Did Rachel still think she had a chance with Ethan? And what if Ethan, despite his promises, still had feelings for her? I couldn't take it anymore. The uncertainty was eating me alive. So one afternoon, I did something bold. I found Rachel's address and decided to confront her. Her apartment was in an older building on the other side of town. When she opened the door, I was surprised by how fragile she looked. Her eyes were tired and her shoulders slumped as if she were carrying the weight of the world. "Jade," she said softly, recognizing me instantly. I didn't expect to see you here." "I need to know what's going on," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why are you messaging my husband?" She hesitated before stepping aside to let me in. Her apartment was small and sparsely furnished, with boxes piled in the corners as if she were in the middle of packing or unpacking. "I'm not trying to ruin your marriage," Rachel said as we sat down. "I swear that's not my intention." "Then why are you telling him you miss him?" I asked, my voice sharp with anger and pain. She looked down at her hands, tears welling up in her eyes. "Because I don't know how much time I have left." Her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Rachel took a deep breath and handed me a stack of papers from the table, medical reports. My stomach dropped as I scanned the words. "Stage 3 breast cancer?" "I found out a few months ago," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't have anyone else, Jade. My parents passed away years ago, and I don't have close friends anymore. Ethan, he was the only person who ever made me feel safe. I just needed to feel that again, even if only for a little while." I stared at her, torn between anger and pity. She wasn't trying to steal Ethan away from me, at least not in the way I had thought. But her presence in our lives was still a threat, intentional or not. "Why didn't you tell him the truth?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I didn't want him to feel obligated," she whispered. "I didn't want to be a burden." I left her apartment feeling a mix of emotions I couldn't untangle. Part of me felt guilty for assuming the worst about her, but another part of me still felt betrayed by her, by Ethan, and by the situation I had been thrust into. That night, I told Ethan everything. At first, he was angry that I had gone behind his back. But when I told him about Rachel's condition, his anger melted into sadness. "She should have told me," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I could have helped her." Over the next few weeks, Ethan and I worked through the challenges Rachel's revelation had brought into our lives. He visited her a few times, offering her the support she needed, while setting clear boundaries to protect our marriage. I joined him on one of those visits, and to my surprise, Rachel and I found a fragile connection. She wasn't the villain I had imagined. She was a woman facing her mortality, clinging to the memories of a time when life felt simpler. Helping her allowed Ethan and me to grow closer in ways I hadn't expected. We learned to communicate better, to face challenges together instead of letting them drive us apart. And as for Rachel, she faced her battle with grace and courage, knowing she wasn't alone. Life isn't always black and white. It's messy, complicated, and full of unexpected twists. But through it all, I've learned that love isn't just about the easy moments. It's about standing together in the storm and coming out stronger on the other side. If you liked my story, don't forget to subscribe for more intense, high-energy tailies.